Welcome in everybody to the AP Sports Football Podcast Show. It is July 17th today on this nice evening here. Today's episode, I think it's going to be a very good one. I have a lot of stuff to talk about. It's been a week since I last made a episode of the podcast. So there's quite a few to talk about. I've been meaning to talk about this one segment of today's podcast I think everybody will enjoy. But there's a lot of stuff I want to talk about, a lot of news that's come out recently, a lot of uprising is what I could say. We'll start off right here. So I have heard from multiple different analysts, media analysts, and just from other shows and all that this season is the most anticipated season of all time. Like, it's the most hype. It's the changing of college football, which I think it is, and I think they're correct with this assumption. If you look at why I think it's the most anticipated season of all time, there's the 12-team playoff, which has never been done, obviously. The 14 playoff, what was it, 10 years ago? I mean, all that. But there's just so much into it that I just think there's just different people are going to have to get used to. I think this year's different with the contenders, the quality of teams. I mean, you have the 12-team playoff, which I think is going to be amazing, which usually out of the 4 playoffs plus that we've recently had, you would make a case for around seven teams, like, okay, like preseason, to go, this team has a legitimate shot to go win the national championship. Like 6 to 7, right? This year, even if it was the still 14 playoff right now, I would still say there are roughly, in my opinion, I could give a case for 14 teams to win the national championship. 14 teams. So imagine if there's a 4-play playoff. That's 10 teams that are just snubbed. I mean, not snubbed. There's obviously all this, blah, blah, blah. But, I mean, those are 10 teams that will obviously be left out. But this year with the 12-team playoff, there's 12 teams that get in. And I just think there's so many teams that could be contenders that are going to have quality seasons. There's a lot of stuff to shape up the season, which, I mean, I love it. You see that if we go to the conference realignment, which is part of this too, there's no more divisions. So it's now the top 2 best teams with the conference record will play each other. So normally you'll have the divisions, right? Big 12 was never like that. But the divisions, I mean, you would always have, for an example, a great example is the Big 10. Whoever won that Big 10 East, they would always just, like in recent years, they would go win the Big 10 easily, which it's been Michigan the past 3. But before that, I mean, Ohio State, yeah, Michigan State, all that. But, I mean, they would just go destroy the Big 10 West team. I mean, that's just how it was. But now, we could be looking later in November, it could be a Michigan-Ohio State rematch in the Big 10 championship. Michigan versus Penn State, Ohio State. There's just a lot of stuff that I really like about the no divisions part. It's the top 2 teams in the conference, which I think will be really good, which both those 2 teams will be up near probably the top 12 for the Power 4 conferences. So I really like that. But as I said earlier, I have about 15 teams that have a legitimate shot to win the national championship. You can make a case for 15 teams. I really like that. But another reason why I think this season is so hyped up, I mean, I think it should be hyped up. It's going to be a season to remember. In the regular season alone, there are a lot of top 10 matchup games that we could see in the future. A lot of them. A lot. I mean, if Clemson gets ranked in the top 10, you have one week 1. Clemson versus Georgia, neutral site game. But you have that. I mean, if you go down, with Michigan gets put in the top 10, you have week 2, Texas at Michigan. The list keeps on going around. I'll read some of the list off. You got Texas at Michigan, Georgia at Bama, Georgia at Texas, FSU at Notre Dame, Clemson at FSU, Ole Miss versus Georgia, Missouri at Alabama, Michigan at Ohio State. Now, these are just some of the teams I could list off the top of my head. Like, these are the games I list off the top of my head. You could go down and make a case for games later on the season that could be top 10 matchup games. I mean, it's just a crazy season. I'm very excited for this season. I think it's the most anticipated of all time, which I think has great reason for that. But this season will be one to remember. I think it's going to shape everything up, which, going into my next segment here, a group of 5 team out of the 12-team playoff, a group of 5 team gets a guaranteed spot, the best group of 5 team. I don't know how the committee will decide that, if it's an undefeated team, a team that goes 11-1 with a loss to a Power 4 conference team, but what I want to talk about right now is there's 5 group of 5 teams that I want you to keep an eye out for during the year, because obviously you're going to be keeping an eye out for the top 25, all the Power 4 teams, those big dogs, Georgia, Texas, all that, Alabama, Michigan, Ohio State, Oregon, all of that, right? But I want you to just watch out for these teams, is what I'm trying to say. Which the first thing I want to talk about right now is Boise State. So if you look up the group of 5 contenders for the college football playoff, Boise State's at the top of almost every list. Boise State last year went 8-6 in 2023, and this year I think they have good reason to improve on that, to go almost 11-1, maybe 12-0 if some crazy stuff happens. But Boise State, they have the former 5-star USC transfer Malachi Nelson at quarterback. He's going to be throwing to a former 5-star Chris Marshall at wide receiver. That duo I think will be very good. I think it'll be one of the best duos in the country for a quarterback wide receiver. Their running back Ashton Jeanty, he's very explosive, a very talented back. I think he's a top 10 running back in the country as well. So they have playmakers at each level for offense. Their offensive line I think is very good. Their defense is a veteran-led defense. Their special teams is one of the best in the country. Their kicker, Jonah Damas, I mean, this is just a crazy stat about them. He can break the NCAA record for most field goal made this year, which that would be something. That would be something. But going into Boise State's schedule, which I put up on the screen right now, and you look at it, so they have Oregon's second week at Oregon, at Eugene. So that is the game that I think most people have them losing, which I'm going to go out and say I think they lose that. But if they can compete there for a little bit and maybe lose by 14-10, 10-14 range, 10-17, make it almost a close game, Oregon pulls away at the end, that shows that Boise State's a contender. Because really the rest of their schedule, I mean, you got Georgia Southern week 1, I think they're fine. Portland State. You got Washington State, September 28th. And Washington State could be a sneaky team. You got Oregon State at the end of the year, as you can see there. San Diego State, November 1st on a Friday. San Diego State's another great group of 5 team that I think will be very good. So that is, Boise State's schedule isn't too tough, but it's not easy. It's not a cakewalk. They're gonna have to come out every single week, play good defense, play good offense, good special teams. Just they cannot shoot themselves in the foot, and that's why I think Boise State will be very good. If we move on to our next group of 5 team, I have the Memphis Tigers. So Memphis is another team. If you look up, they are up at every list for a group of 5. They went 10-3 last year in 2023. I think they have great room to improve on it. I mean, they're a very good team. So Seth Hennigan at quarterback, he's one of the most experienced quarterbacks in the nation, aside from Cam Rising, Alan Bowman, all those guys, right? But he's one of the most experienced quarterbacks in the nation. He's played a lot of snaps under his belt. He's a very good player, very good leader as well. 7 out of 11 starters come back on offense, so I think he's very good. Seth Hennigan also returns his top 2 targets that he threw to last year, so that's very good. The O-line's very experienced, a lot of snaps under all their belts, all former starters, so I think that's very good. The thing about Memphis that I need to see improve on is their defense. Their defense was not superstar last year, okay? That was their weakness. They need to improve on defense. They allowed almost 423 yards a game, just above 28 points per game. Now, their offense was really good last year, so that helped, but it's just that in itself, they need to get way better on defense. Defense is where they need to become better, which I think they will this year. They need to cut down on explosive plays on the defensive side of the ball. They had 118 plays over 20 yards last year. That's not good. You need to cut down the explosive plays. You need to cut down the explosive plays if you want to be good. You cannot give up chunk plays, is what they say. Looking at their schedule real quick, they have Florida State the third week at Florida State, which I do not see them. I wouldn't say they don't have a chance, but that's going to be a very hard game to win. You look down, they play at USF. USF, I think, is a good team. UTSA is a really good team. Tulane, don't sleep on them. I mean, Navy as well, earlier in the year. Their schedule is not easy. They have really good group of 5 teams in their schedule. They also have FSU. So Memphis will have to do a lot this year to get that group of 5 bid, but I think it's very, very possible for Memphis to get that bid. But Staying in the American Conference, though, moving on to my next team. Now, this team is my sleeper team of the group of 5 teams. I think this team's going to be very good. They went 7-6 last year, and I think they have great room to improve. University of South Florida, the USF Bulls. So, USF I really like. They have 9 returning starters, including their star quarterback Byron Brown. Byron Brown, by the way, I don't know if you saw, he is explosive. He is very good. He's a very good dual threat guy. There was a stat I read earlier. It was him and Jaden Daniels, who won the Heisman, by the way, last year. They were like the only 2 quarterbacks to have over 800 rushing yards and 2,000 passing yards, which I think is kind of crazy. But Byron Brown is a great player at quarterback, a great leader. I've heard from people inside the locker room that he's a great leader. But they do need to cut down on the sacks on the offensive line, which I think the offensive line is going to get better. I think they have gotten better. So Byron Brown, that helped Byron Brown a lot. He doesn't have to scramble as much, stay within the pocket, escape when he needs to. But the Florida transfer, Naquan Wright, I would watch out for him. Watch out for him. That is a great addition to that offense. They're going to be very good. But moving on to the defense side of the ball, I think their defense needs to be better. Their pass coverage needs to be better on third down. I think their pass coverage will be better. It was one of the worst in the American Conference last year, I can tell you that, and that's the American Conference, so rank that in the country. But they need to be better on third down well. They need to get off the field when they have that. I mean, but if USF can do all these things that I'm saying, they can have a good offense, good run game, good pass game. They can not shoot themselves in the foot with penalties, be very disciplined. They're going to be a very good team. They could have a 10-win season. So looking at their schedule, though, it's pretty hard. They have a hard schedule. They have at Alabama week 2, which I do not see them having a chance in that. But they also have at Southern Miss week 3, September 14th. They have Miami, Memphis. You go down Navy. I mean, it's not an easy schedule. It's not a walk in the park. So they're going to need to do a lot to come out of this with the double-digit wins, which I think is possible. But there's another world where they could go 7-5 in the regular season real quick again. So I think USF's a very good team. They're a sleeper team. Watch out for them this year. Moving on to my next team, Southern Miss Golden Eagles. Now, this team went 3-9 last year. And you're probably like, why are you putting them here? So I've seen people be really high on them. I've seen people be really low on them. I'm about right in the middle. I think they have a really good possibility to be good and a really good possibility to be very bad. That is my opinion. They've been very injury heavy the past few seasons, so maybe if they can get healthy, that injury bug cannot hit them in the locker room this year. Maybe that will help a lot. The main story for them this offseason was former Florida State quarterback Tate Rodemaker transferred there at quarterback. He'll be their starter. That's a very good pickup for them. Okay? Former Power 5 guy, has experience. He played in those games last year. Played in the swamp. So, I mean, very guy. I don't think he's afraid of the moment. I think last year it was just, he got put in at a bad time for Florida State, as I could say. But they got huge transfers on both sides of the ball. I think are very good, very impactful players. The thing about them last year is they let up a lot of points. So, I think that'll change this year. They have a new defensive coordinator, But Southern Miss is a team that I would watch out for. They are going to be, I think they're going to be very good. If everything goes to plan, we're just looking at their schedule. I mean, they start off the year at Kentucky, which is not cool, but they have USF September 14th going down their schedule. I mean, it looks pretty winnable at James Madison. That could be a tricky game. Texas State's a team I really like. So it's not too hard. Could be a very winnable schedule. If Tate Rodemaker can figure out that offense, that defense can step up, not allow so many points, that could be a very good team. But moving on to my final team that I want to talk about today, which I'll be talking about more group of 5 teams as we get closer in the year, which I have a few here that I'll list after this. But my last team I want to talk about today is the UTSA Roadrunners. Now, this team last year went 9-4. They lost a lot. They lost their quarterback, their guy. But they have veteran running backs that are returning, which I think are going to lead that offense. The new QB is the main question mark of that team. Who will it be? How will he do? In these certain moments, how will he do? Is he ready for that big moment? Because UTSA will have a moment this year that they'll have to win this game, and they'll have to win that game, and that game will be very impactful to their season. So that has a lot to do. Their offense is very high powered. They score fast pace. I like that. Their defense is a veteran defense, which is why I like them. The defense is the biggest part of the season. That defense has that bend, don't break mentality. They'll let you down. They will give up big plays and all that. But when they get down in the red zone, they have one of the best red zone defenses of last season. So I think it will repeat for that. But UTSA is a team I really want you guys to watch out for. Just keep an eye on them throughout the year. I mean, looking at their schedule, they have at Texas week 3, East Carolina at East Carolina. They have Memphis, North Texas, Army to end the year. I mean, they have a good schedule. I like their schedule. It's a very winnable schedule with that team. So UTSA is a team I really like. I think they're going to be very good again. Could they get that Group of 5 bid? I don't know. But the other Group of 5 teams that I'll be talking about later on in the future are Liberty, Appalachian State, San Diego State, and Fresno State. And real quick, Fresno State, they are a contender every year. Their head coach has stepped down because of health reasons. But Fresno State is a team that I really like, which they open up the year with Michigan. But we'll get into that later on. The next segment and the last segment that I want to talk about today, I know it's not that long of an episode today, but we'll be getting one out or in the next upcoming days. I want to film another one. But this is I've been hearing this. So I used to not think like this, but from the past couple of months, from January until now, this has really grown on me. I have here all my notes, SEC is the best conference. And I used to always say that I was one of those people that say the SEC, yes, they're very good, they have good teams, but they're just run by Georgia and Alabama. That's the reason why they're so good. That's the reason why their success is so high, right? But you looked up and down their list, the depth they have this year, it's not like previous years. The depth they have this year, it's crazy. The depth of teams this year are very, very good. They could have 5 to 7 teams in the top 10 alone. That is almost half. If they have 7, that's almost half of the amount of teams in their conference. Okay? In my top 25 that I listed, I put 5 teams in my top 10. I could have easily had 7 in my top 10. There were a few outliers that I didn't want to do, but I had 5. The SEC, if you look at it, every team is good. Every team, there's no really walk in the park. I guess you could say Vanderbilt. I don't want to throw them under the bus. I guess you could say Vanderbilt, but it's still, if you don't show up against Vanderbilt, they have a better chance to beat you. I don't want to throw this team under the bus as well, but would you rather go play Vanderbilt at Vanderbilt in the middle of the year or go play at Northwestern? It's just how it is. So you would rather play at Northwestern, which, as I just said, it's how it is. So SEC, you hear a lot of people have the SEC bias, which I think they now, I'm not saying deserve to write it, but if people are going to say that, then, I mean, yeah, I guess they do deserve it, because look at how good every team is this year. I used to always say, if you take the top 2 teams from every conference, they would maybe compete with the top of the SEC, and then they would beat the teams under that. This year, it may not be like that. Okay? So a great example is Michigan is one of the top teams in the Big Ten, correct? And I know I use Michigan a lot, and I use this game a lot, but Texas is around the 2nd to 3rd best in the SEC, right? So in my past years, I would say, okay, Michigan would compete with Texas, right? This year, which I think they will, I think they're going to compete with Texas, but that's just my personal opinion. But there's people that think Michigan don't stand a chance against Texas. And if you look at it, that's just how it is. If you look at Oklahoma State, Kansas State, the number 2 and number 3 betting odds to win the Big 12, they aren't standing a chance against Alabama this year. First off, I mean, I think they will, but there are people that think they won't. That's just how it is. Can you see where I'm going with this? The SEC is just so heavy with talent, just depth. That's where you want to go. You want to go to the Southeastern Conference, okay? You either want to go there, Ohio State, or Oregon. Like, that's where you want to go. So the SEC, the depth makes them the best conference. I think those teams in there are really good from top to bottom. There's no easy schedule, okay? I say Texas has a pretty easy schedule. I mean, they have in a row. They got Mississippi State, okay? Then they have to play OU, which that was normally their game of the year. They would look for that game of the year in the Big 12. They'd be like, okay, this is our game. Circle it on the calendar. We need to win this game, okay? But, so you have that. You have that game still. But then you look at it further. You got Georgia the following week. You got the big dog the following week. So, those are two hard games. I mean, I don't know how they'll handle that. But it's just, the scheduling is... It's just crazy looking at their schedules. Real quick, most of my big games that affect the college football playoff have SEC teams in it. Okay? So when I put out my list, the top 10 games that influenced the season, okay, about a week ago, 6 out of the 10 games involve an SEC game, and I think 4 out of the 6 are SEC games. So I could have easily had 7 to 8 out of the 10 to be SEC. I realistically could have put 10 games for SEC. The SEC is just so deep, so good. I mean, having Texas and Oklahoma join was the biggest win for that conference like I can think of. You put 2 prestige programs there. People want to go to them. And now with the NIL coming out, they can use that money. They have good funds to bring more stars in, more star talent. And by the way, other teams from the Big 10, the Big 12, the ACC, they're going to want to schedule the SEC games because the SEC teams are where they're at. So the SEC, that was just a quick note on the SEC, which I think they're the best conference in all of college football, and they have great reason to be. They have the best depth out of any conference that I have ever seen personally. But the SEC, they are just good. That is my final thoughts on them. But wasn't a super long podcast today. I know it wasn't long, but I'm just getting back into the group of things real quick. But though that was all that I wanted to do today. My next episode will be coming out this weekend, so stay tuned for that. As always, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for watching. Drop a like, drop a follow, subscribe, whatever you're watching this on. Please share it with your friends. Get the podcast out there. We need to get the channel to grow. But thank you. Put your comments down as well for what you think. If you agree, disagree with what I'm saying. But that is all for today. As always, thank you for tuning in.